The red heifer, or para aduma, is a young female cow that must meet specific biblical criteria to be considered suitable for ritual purification in Judaism. According to Numbers 19:1-2, the heifer must be completely red, without blemish, and must never have been used for labor. This rarity makes the red heifer a highly sought-after animal, especially in the context of preparations for the rebuilding of the Third Temple in Jerusalem.
So like a curious traveler on a quest, we embark upon a journey of information. Stay with us for a ride into knowledge.
Today we'll cover the main prophecies that must happen before the Third Temple can be built. And once again, America is involved in making it happen. The prophecy that many in the fundamentalist evangelical churches believe, of course, is that the coming of Jesus will issue in the end times. Jesus will come back. The Jewish people, though, need to be situated once again in Israel and rebuild the temple for all this to happen. The main prophecy that has to occur involves a red cow. And many firmly believe if you want Jesus to come back, you also want Israel to be front and center in the Middle East. Some of you know better. These evangelicals also say unless the Jewish people bend the knee to Jesus, they are lost and committed to spending eternity in hell. Now, these people like the Jews. They like them a lot. Treat them as their besties, but then condemn them to hell. Kind of like what happens when we go visit the Holy Land, isn't it? 3 times a day, observant Jews pray, "May the Holy Temple be rebuilt speedily and in our day." The Jewish people have always lived in the Holy Land, and after the Holocaust, the Jews began to return to Israel en masse. In 1948, the Jewish nation was prophetically reborn as the State of Israel, and ever since, Jews have been streaming back to the land from all 4 corners of the earth. Now, since 1967, there has been a movement in Israel to rebuild the Holy Temple. However, the main obstacle is that Temple Mound, and it's currently occupied by the Dome of the Rock. Just as the regathering of the Jewish people is fulfillment of biblical prophecy, so too is the building of the Third Holy Temple. Today, many of the preparations for the Third Temple have already been completed, including the sacred worship vessels and priestly garments to be worn by the Levites in temple service, as well as over 500 young Jewish men descended from the tribe of Levi have been trained as temple priests to fulfill their duties of worship and sacrifice in the temple. But the temple service can't begin without the red heifer. The Bible states that only the red heifer can restore the biblical purity needed to rebuild the temple. A man who is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer and put them in a ceremonial clean place outside the camp. The Third Temple Institute, the organization dedicated to preparing for the construction of the Third Temple in Jerusalem, says these cleansing waters are necessary to ritually purify the Temple Mount area, the sacred vessel, and the entire Levitical priesthood that are all being prepared for that service going on today. The waters of sanctification were also sprinkled onto all those who were impure, and many were first purified in the process before entering the courts of the temple. The state of uncleanliness lasted 7 days and prevented a person from participating in the community or temple worship. Although various methods may be employed to cleanse a person from other forms of defilement, such as ritual water immersion, the ashes of the red heifer is the only remedy for the defilement that results from ever contacting with a corpse. Ezekiel, who prophesied about the rebuilding of the temple, also mentions these waters of purification in conjunction with the regathering of Israel, linking the red heifer to the end times and the coming Messiah era. The rabbis consider the red heifer one of the greatest mysteries of the Torah. Even they wonder how it's possible that the ashes of a sanctified animal can purify from sin and defilement. The commandment regarding the red heifer is such a mystery that the rabbis place it in the category of divine orders that cannot be understood by our limited human understanding. Kosher and dietary laws fit in that same category. Now, some Jewish sages believe the ordinance of the red heifer to be connected to the sin of the golden calf. The red heifer is believed to serve in some way as atonement for the terrible consequences of the Israelites worshiping that golden calf when they were brought out of Egypt. Now, in order for a cow to qualify as a red heifer for the holy purposes of purification, it must meet the following requirements. The red heifer must be absolutely perfect in its redness. Even 2 hairs of any other color would disqualify it. Even its hoofs must be red. It was to be 3 or 4 years old. Although older animals could be used, younger could not. It must be free of any kind of internal or external defect or blemish. It must not have been used for any type of physical labor and never have it been placed under a yoke, not even once. Only an animal that meets all these requirements may be used to provide the ashes of purification process in fulfillment of the commandment. The Temple Institute, which has already prepared the sacred temple vessels, has in the past identified 2 possible red heifers. These candidates were in 1997 and again in 2002. Now, although both were initially thought to be kosher, they were later found to be unsuitable. Now, to add to that Ark of the Covenant now being displayed, Christian Zionists, ranchers in Texas, produced 5 perfect red heifers, and they arrived in Israel in April of 23. The red heifer is the key to making the temple work like it's supposed to, and that brings them even closer to building the temple. Today, heavily armed guards ensure that only Muslims are allowed inside the current complex. But that hasn't stopped Jewish activists from leading groups up to the Temple Mount 5 days every week. The third temple is a suggestion that many fear, if acted on, it could make the current war going on even bloodier. Everyone says that the building of the third temple is what will bring the war, and it will destabilize the Middle East. The Middle East seems pretty destabilized already, if you ask me. The National Gathering for Prayer and Repentance in Washington, D.C., last year spoke of the heifer and hopes for a third Jewish temple. The gathering was convened by U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson, who gave a keynote prayer before a who's who of evangelical leaders and congresspeople spoke. Now, many American evangelicals believe the red heifer will usher the second coming of Christ. But that's certainly not what the Jews believe. This seems to be just more Yahweh versus Jesus stuff. And I asked you, why would Christians continue to misinterpret Jewish text that the Jewish people disagree with, yet allow it, saying nothing, because it plays into the hands of the Jewish purpose? Don't tell the Christians that we disagree. And then we'll have their full support in doing what we need to do. Christians, you should remember the third temple is not needed as per what Jesus said. Just more food for thought.
Thanks for watching this and all our videos. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until we meet again, stay curious, fellow travelers, and have a great day.